This is one of those movies that's going to be difficult to review because of nostalgic purposes. Jurassic Park 3 is obviously the third Jurassic Park movie, made 14 years ago. Wow, time flies. And returns us to the island of Isla Sorna from the Lost World, which has now been deemed restricted by the Costa Rican government after John Hammond succeeded in showing that the animals on the island need to thrive without human interference. The movie brings back Dr. Alan Grant, played again by Sam Neill, as he's still in the field of digging up dinosaur bones, even though it seems like all I can find is velociraptors, when he's suddenly approached by Paul Kirby, played by William H. Macy, doing his best Ned Flanders cosplay. Howdy do, neighbor! He and his wife, Amanda Kirby, ask Alan Grant to be a guide with them to Isla Sorna as they just fly over the island for their wedding anniversary. But when they unexpectedly land and find themselves stranded on the island, the Kirbys admit to Alan that they only brought him because they needed an expert to help them find their son, Eric, who was parasailing over the island 8 weeks ago and hasn't been seen since. So basically we have another group of people stranded on an island with dinosaurs everywhere, trying to find somebody while staying alive at the same time. Now, rewatching this movie for this review was actually pretty difficult because I have really fond memories of this movie for two main reasons. One, this is the first Jurassic Park movie I ever saw in the theater. I was 10 years old, and as you can imagine, as a 10-year-old boy who has not developed critical taste for movies yet, I loved it. I didn't see The Lost World in the theater, and I didn't see the first Jurassic Park in the theater because I was 2 when the first one came out, and that was way too intense for me. But the other reason why this movie is nostalgic for me is because I've actually visited the set. Yeah, me and my family know somebody who actually worked on the third Jurassic Park movie, and he got us passes to visit the set one day, and I got to see them shoot the scene at the end with the Velociraptors retrieving the eggs back from the characters. I got to see the animatronic T-Rex and animatronic Spinosaurus underneath a giant tarp because they weren't being used. And the reason I'm telling you that I visited the set as a kid, outside of that being a story, is because I am going to be honest with you. I'm going to give you a completely honest review of Jurassic Park 3 and tell you that after 14 years of soaking it in, this movie is average. It is an average summer blockbuster. I don't hate it like so many other people do, but I'm not in love with it by any stretch of the imagination. So let's delve into why. One of the reasons why this movie doesn't work quite well is because the story is actually cliched. I mean, first of all, let's not pretend that the first Jurassic Park and The Lost World were A-class stories to begin with. They both were B stories, but made into big-budget A-list movies by a critically acclaimed director, Steven Spielberg. Jurassic Park 3 doesn't really have that. The plot is very generic, cliched, and it's the first movie not to be directed by Steven Spielberg. Instead, it's Joe Johnston, who started out as an effects artist for the first 2 Star Wars movies and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and an art director for Raiders of the Lost Ark and the last 2 Star Wars movies in the original trilogy. In terms of his directing credits, he's done Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, and I believe his last movie was Captain America: The First Avenger, which came out 4 years ago. Wow. Jurassic Park 3 is not really one of his best efforts, honestly. And it mainly comes down to the script, which you'll be surprised to hear that it was co-written by Alexander Payne, who gave us Election, The Descendants, and Nebraska. You don't really care about any of the characters. I mean, Sam Neill is back as Alan Grant, as I mentioned, but he plays Alan Grant the same way he played him in the first Jurassic Park, but ultimately has nothing to do. Like, in the first Jurassic Park movie, he started out not liking kids. He thought they were smelly, expensive, whatever. But because he got stranded on Isla Nublar with John Hammond's grandkids, their time together while trying to get back to the visitor center made Alan Grant open up to kids. In fact, in the opening of this movie, we see him playing with dinosaurs with Ellie Sattler's son, which the two of them aren't seeing each other in this movie for some reason, I don't know. But once you get on the island, Alan Grant just really has nothing to do outside of tell people to stop being stupid and stop making dumb decisions. The other characters are very boring. William H. Macy and Tia Leone do a fine job as actors, even if Tia Leone is often annoying and makes dumb decisions like yelling through a megaphone into the forest where there are Velociraptors, T-Rex, and Spinosaurus in there. But probably the worst actor in this movie is the guy who plays Alan's assistant, Billy, Alessandro Nivola. He is so flat and lacks tone in his voice. Every line he says in this movie is like, I give you the vocal chamber of a velociraptor. You let a 12-year-old go parasailing alone? That's a Tyrannosaurus, huh? They set a trap. They actually set a trap. It's like, don't you have a different tone in your voice, dude? And the one characteristic they give him, in order to make him a little more interesting, I guess, is stolen right from the Lost World with the lucky backpack that was Sarah Harding's characteristic in the Lost World. It's like, wow, to try and make this guy a little more interesting, you had to steal someone else's characteristic? Okay, let's move away from the stuff that I didn't like and the stuff that's bad, because admittedly, there is some stuff that I do like about this movie. I think the action and chase sequences are very well done, especially when animatronics are used, because knowing that something is there in front of the camera ups the intensity. The special effects, animatronic and CG-wise, are really good, and I like how they blend CG and animatronics together. I mean, if it's two dinosaurs in a frame, like one CG and the other's animatronic, you could tell which is which. But there's a moment when the Spinosaurus attacks the airplane on the ground and stomps on it. The foot is animatronic, but the hands and the other foot that's not stomping on the plane is CG. And it took me a while to realize that, and I was like, oh, that actually looks pretty good, blending CG and animatronics to make me think that the CG looks like animatronics. And speaking of the Spinosaurus, I will say this. The Spinosaurus is cool. I mean, it's a real dinosaur to begin with. It can really often be scary, especially in its roar and the fact how vicious it is. But this is the first dinosaur to be depicted as a movie monster and not an actual animal. I mean, for one of those people that did not like The Lost World at all, you have to admit that even the T-Rexes were treated like animals. When they pushed the mobile lab off the cliff, they marked that territory as their own and were trying to get rid of any intruders. All the dinosaurs in the Jurassic Park films have been depicted as animals, except the Spinosaurus. For some reason, this thing acts as a movie monster. It stalks the characters. It just keeps popping up everywhere when it really shouldn't. And I hate how the T-Rex got replaced by this thing. The fight scene between the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus is pretty cool, I think, because I like monster fights. But it ends with the T-Rex getting killed and eaten by the Spinosaurus, which really irritates me that they replaced the most famous theropod in the fossil record. But I'm grateful that with Jurassic World and future Jurassic Park products, they brought the T-Rex back as the mascot. Now as for the Velociraptors, Billy steals a bunch of eggs, and every time the Velociraptors are on screen, they do it to try to get the eggs back, which is a little weird, but they did establish in this series that the Velociraptors are really smart. I mean, so smart that they can open doors in the first Jurassic Park. So I didn't have much of a problem with that. Let's get back into the realm of positivity. The one sequence I think in this movie that stands out from all the rest is the birdcage sequence with all the pteranodons. It's filmed in a foggy environment where you can't really see what's ahead of you. The pteranodons are pretty intimidating. The animatronics for the baby pteranodons are super convincing. They are awesome. And it's just a really intense sequence, whether you care about the characters or not. And plus, the pteranodons are always cool. And I do kind of enjoy the family element in this movie. I do like the idea that these two divorced parents can work aside their differences to basically team up, find their son, and it's an event that ultimately reunites the entire family again. So I like that. I just wish it was in a better movie. So to sum things up, I don't think Jurassic Park 3 is horrible. I mean, it didn't go down the path as Jaws 3D, where it just became so bad it's enjoyable to watch, because this thing does have legitimately good moments. It's a mediocre movie all around, but I would be lying if I said that I did not enjoy this movie. So I'm going to say this movie is something you watch at your own risk. If you watch this, there are some things you will like about it, It is entertaining on the whole, but I don't give this a strong recommendation like I do with the first Jurassic Park or even The Lost World. So that's my review for Jurassic Park 3. I am really looking forward to seeing Jurassic World. I can't wait to review it and watch it, obviously. And also tune in next Wednesday for another series of Retro Wednesday reviews revolving around another franchise that Stan Winston's animatronics had a strong hand in. Until then, leave a comment and tell me what you thought of the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Like, subscribe, share me with your friends, and this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.